As President Trump faces the political fallout from his emergency declaration, Democrats eager to take him on in 2020 hit the road, courting voters in the early nominating contest. For analysis on all this and more, I'm joined by our Politics Monday team, Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report and the host of the podcast Politics with Amy Walter on WNYC, and Tamara Keith of NPR. Hello to both of you. So there's a lot to talk about. We've just been talking about, though, the emergency, the national emergency that President Trump declared on Friday, that we are out with a poll just done over the weekend. This is the NewsHour, NPR, and Marist College, Amy, and it shows, and we're showing everybody watching the results among Republicans, very popular, not surprising, 85% like what the president did, support it. Among Democrats, unpopular, only 6%, but among independents, it's also not a majority, right. 33%. What does this tell us about what the president did and what the public thinks?
Well, the president has had a challenge for some time now. First of all, the facts themselves don't support the claim that there's an emergency on the border, whether it's the number of people being apprehended, people who are trying to cross illegally, whether it's where drugs are coming in, normal ports of entry, they're not being taken at other border crossings. So the facts have been pretty well set that there's not an emergency there at the border. And the president has been trying to make the case now for some time that there is indeed an emergency. He's at an Oval Office address. He's been in the Rose Garden. He used his State of the Union address to put this idea forward. And what now you see is 58% of Americans don't believe that there is a crisis at the border. The only folks who seem to really be supporting the president's claim that he has authority to do this emergency declaration or that there is an actual crisis, not surprisingly, are Republicans, which tells you all you need to know about where this is going to head up in Congress, which is that most likely the Democrats in the House will support a resolution saying that they don't agree with this emergency declaration, and Republicans in the Senate will stick with the president.
Republicans are going to stick with him, Tam, regardless.
Well, most likely, though there have been a handful of Republicans who in the Senate have said that they really don't support this emergency action.
Right.
And what's interesting here is that law from 1976 that you just spent a good long segment talking about, it includes a fast-track authority. So the House takes up this bill to terminate the president's emergency order, which we fully expect. It'll pass the Democratic House. It'll go to the Senate, and there is nothing Mitch McConnell can do to avoid a vote. It has to get a vote. And so what it does is it does require Republicans who, leading up to this, said, wow, this would be terrible. Please don't do it. Don't put us in this position. It puts them in that position of having to decide whether they believe in the Article 1 role of Congress, right, or whether they want to support their Republican president.
And many of them argued during the Obama presidency that he was overreaching,
yes,
right? And power grab, unconstitutional decisions that he made, specifically, not surprisingly, around immigration.
Dreamers.
Et cetera, yeah, right. And their parents.
And their parents, yes, and the families.
That's right.
So that was not done using an emergency declaration.
Correct.
It was done administratively and all within the executive branch. This is a little bit different in that the president has taken the word of Congress. Congress said, this is how much money we want to give you for the wall. And he's saying, actually, I'd like right, more than that.
Yeah. Right. It's executive action versus declaration of emergency, right, which is a more extreme step to take. Right. We mentioned 2020, and I want to bring this up, and we've got a map. We tried to look at where the 2020 Democratic candidates, they were all over the country in the early states. I was just looking at this. They were in Iowa, not surprising, New Hampshire, but they were also in Wisconsin, Georgia, South Carolina, Texas, California, and Nevada. Tam, we are, they're out there, but the other new name that we have that we heard about over the weekend is William Weld, who has run for for office, and it was the governor of Massachusetts, but he's running as a Republican. He's challenging President Trump, or at least he's formed an exploratory committee.
And you can expect him to spend a lot of time in New Hampshire, where they may remember him or have heard his name. He did run for vice president on the Libertarian ticket last time around. He's not like one of the big name, big money Republicans that potentially could run against President Trump in a primary. But, you know, a president facing a primary, even a weak primary, is something that indicates potentially someone out there believes that the president has weaknesses.
And there are other Republicans.
And there are other Republicans looking
Yes.
at it. We'll see. John Kasich, the most talked about person who's likely to challenge him. But you know, what's interesting is the candidates or the presidents who have had significant primary challenges in recent history, that president had very low approval rating scores among members of their own party. So when you think back to where Jimmy Carter's
Carter
approval
with
rating
Teddy
was
Kennedy.
when Ted Kennedy announced, his approval ratings among Democrats are somewhere in the 40s. When LBJ was challenged by McGovern, his approval rating among Democrats were somewhere in the 50s. George H.W. Bush was somewhere in the 70s when Pat Buchanan announced his primary to him. This president is a president with an 89% approval rating among Republicans. So there's not an obvious path for a Republican to take. I think Tam's right. It's just you don't want to, as an incumbent president, have to spend your time and energy and money on this. But we're also going to see, and especially in a place like New Hampshire, which is a swing state, a battleground state, one Trump barely lost in 2016, is there a group of Republicans there that are so disappointed with this president that they are willing to go and support another candidate on the Republican side for president, and what that will tell us about these voters? I'm going to look at those voters then as we go into 2020. Where do they go? Do they go with the Democrat? Do they stay at home? Do they decide to stick with the president at the end of the day?
This is unfair. We've got less than a minute left. But something you two have wanted to talk about is not only is there a presidential campaign in 2020, but obviously the Senate's up, the House is up. These Senate candidates in a number of states where the cycle is their turn, it's a huge concern to Republicans and Democrats. Democrats want to pick up control.
Yeah, whereas the last midterm was a good map for Republicans, this is a better map for Democrats. But Democrats are now frantically trying to get people who could potentially be Senate candidates not to run for president.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, in places
Because when you're running for president,
you can't do both. That's
Right.
exactly right. In places like Colorado
Right.
and Montana, or in Georgia, where Stacey Abrams, they're trying to get her to run for the Senate.
some cross pressures.
That's
at
right.
work. Amy Walter, Tamara Keith, thank you both.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.